Hello friends, welcome to the Abyssal Raid Guide series featuring Kayangel. Kayangel has two difficulties, normal at eye level 1540 and hard at eye level 1580. This raid will provide materials to level up your gear set bonus to 3 and upgrade your ability stone to ancient level for more HP gain. The raid itself is not that heavy in mechanic execution, but all future content from this point on will require more of the player's DPS uptime, ability to dodge normal patterns, and aggro control. If you guys are interested in written guides more, you can check my friends at Mobalytics to see the written detailed version of the guide. They helped me put the special effects in the guide video for me. This video will cover gate 1 out of 4, the Sky Guardian. This gate has a universal mechanic, the Hunt Mark. During the fight, a sword mark will appear at a random player's head. This is not cleansable, and if 3 of them stacks up, you will be automatically rooted and require your teammates to save you. If you're not saved in time, swords will spawn and stab you to death. Remember, freeing someone from root is based on the number of hits. Gate 1 fight has 2 major mechanics. First one will start around 53 lines. When the mechanic is triggered, there will be a dialogue and the guardian will fly away. After she lands, there will be a series of pizza-shaped warning signs indicating harmful spots. She will then charge up for an attack you will need to stagger. Tip is to make sure to be on a safe spot first, then begin to stagger. Feel free to use a whirlwind grenade here if you're not confident with your stagger. After you successfully stagger, there will be 8 orbs spawning around her, 4 cyan and 4 magenta in random order. Don't take them just yet and position yourself away from other party mates, because an additional snowflake-shaped explosion will appear under your feet with the boss's initial roar. Her second roar will either glow magenta or cyan. This is the color indicator on which orb to take to shield yourself from the death blast. She will stomp the ground 3 to 4 times, and each stomp will spawn line-shaped explosions. This will knock you over, so be careful upon getting hit by them. Most death mistakes are falling over twice without a spacebar to safe fall to finish the mechanic properly. The timing of taking the shield orb is when the boss roars after the 3rd or the 4th stomp. Tip is to always run ahead of the orb to have an easier time to grab them. Running behind them is too risky, especially for slower classes. Second major mechanic is around 25 lines. She will roar again and fly off, and land in the center. Remember, in Lostark, if a major mechanic starts, the stagger bar will always lock up. That's how you identify the boss is doing a special normal pattern or a mechanic in every raid. After she lands, with a dialogue, she will spawn 12 orbs that are different in color and orbiting ring numbers. There will also be a giant rotating red danger spots consistently spinning clockwise in hard mode. Standing in these red areas will deal great damage to you. The goal for each player is to take the orbs in order. Blue, 1 ring orb, white, 2 rings orb, then orange, 3 rings orbs as last. These rings will disappear even on an auto attack hit. It is crucial to be careful on using AoE skills, or buff skills like Blade's Maelstrom or Energy Combustion for War Dancer. Support should never use an awakening at this time to not accidentally destroy all the orbs. Taking orbs in a wrong order will negate the stacks to 0 as well. Since there are 1 set of orbs for each player, any failure in this mechanic will result in 1 death to the party. My tip is, if you have trouble distinguishing the orb placements in order, looking at the minimap will help. It will show you all the orb placements in detail. Attacking these orbs at the red zone won't trigger them as well, so it is best to keep running clockwise and plan ahead looking at the minimap. You will need to keep on moving because there will be spears falling on your head periodically. When everything is done correctly, you will see an orange shield forming on your character. This means you're immune from the death explosion at the end. From here, there are no more major mechanics from this point on. Next, let's go over the normal patterns and my personal tips. Fly away pattern. Boss will fly away and throw a series of spears above your head. There is also shadow following a random player. It is kinda hard to see, but it's a grab attack, so it's important to keep on moving. Support should not use your awakening here, because if they happen to be the aggro for the grab animation, it gets cancelled most of the time. Watch out not to use your buffs by accident as well. You can identify the pattern by looking at the crouching animation first. Stagger and reflect. The boss will crouch and glow in either cyan or magenta. Cyan is a stagger meter, while magenta is a reflect that activates in stagger damage. Some parties just deal full DPS and spacebar the reflect damage if shields are applied to them. This is also a known timing for support shielding or buffing as well, if parties want to fully DPS even on the reflect pattern. Outside-inside pattern. Another great DPS pattern, simple outside-inside explosion. Gunlancer can taunt here just before the stomp so other DPS players do not need to waste time and walk outside. Ring explosion. Boss will get ready to stomp. There will be multiple ring explosions that is a little hard to see due to warning sign being blue. Tip is to focus on our paw because that's where the safe spot is initially. This pattern is also decent for taunting because it causes the DPS players to dodge more. Breath attack. The Guardian will do a breath attack and sometimes backstep to do a breath attack again. Most of the time he does it twice, and Gunlancers can taunt this after the first breath is complete to prevent the boss from jumping backwards to cast the second one. Charges. Boss will crouch and charge. These can be countered. If you happen to see the boss charge right away and turn around, this is a counter most of the time, so if you happen to see him fly by, get ready your counter skills to counter him back. Wing slash. Boss will lift his wings and fire 3 wind tornadoes in front of her. You will always want to position yourself at the back for this attack. You do not want to taunt this pattern as well because the boss is stationary for a very long time. Flapping wings, then land. Boss will flap her wings 2 to 3 times, then land at an aggroed person. It is important for the marked person to stand still and not rotate the boss's head too much. You can also taunt this pattern to cancel it right away because it has multiple head rotations. Front back safe lasers. Boss will spawn 5 green magic circles front and back. Most people tend to be on the sides for this, but the wing flap at the end deals more damage. If you stand in between the magic circles, it's a great DPS time. You should not taunt this pattern because the boss will be stationary for a long time. 8-way lasers. Same for the 5 lasers, the laser will fire 8 ways. Standing in between them or standing close to the boss is safe. Another great DPS pattern which you should not taunt to cancel. Frontal stomp to arrows. Boss will stomp twice and spawn series of arrows. The second stomp will also follow the aggro, which causes head rotations. This really hurts and the initially aggro person should be careful to not rotate the head too much. You can actually taunt the second stomp to make sure that boss stands still for a very long time. Crouch to waffle explosion. This one kills most people on eye level due to stacked AoE damage. Tip is to not stay too close to other players and focus dodging the explosions first and casting major DPS skills. This is a great pattern to use as support shield care. Generally in this fight, you want to position yourself 5 and 7 o'clock positions. If the boss happens to rotate to look at you and does a non-laser pattern, she often has a follow-up attack aimed at the aggroed player. It is very important to step back and hold this head position for your teammates to deal proper damage. Proper aggro control will make this raid much easier. For breath patterns again, it is important to not chase the boss to deal damage. You will often get hit by a second follow-up attack. For supports, good awakening timings are at line 53 before first mechanic starts, and 25 lines when the mechanic starts as well. Like I've said earlier, just make sure the awakening is casted way earlier to prevent accidental ring destruction for the 25 line mechanic. As for attack buffs, you can cast your buffs at any pattern except the flyaway pattern, preferably the stagger and laser patterns. For Gunlancers and Destroyers, again, the recommended taunt patterns is when the boss is using her winged attacks. These often have a follow-up, so canceling the follow-up is better than canceling it as a whole. Meaning, as for the breath attack, canceling the second breath attack is much better, and for wing attack, canceling after the first wing flap is much better than canceling the whole pattern. The real patterns that is really nice to cancel immediately is the waffle pattern and the multiple rings pattern. But this takes a little bit of practice to identify the pattern from the very beginning, so you do not need to worry about it too much. Think about extending the pattern to have the boss stationary for a little bit longer rather than canceling it. With that being said, this concludes the Gate 1 of Kayangel Abyss Dungeon. Kayangel is not a mechanic intensive raid, but it tests your overall fight capabilities of dodging normal patterns, aggro control, and DPS uptime. I personally think understanding aggro control is the most important skill from this point on. As always, thank you everyone, bye bye!